All right, guys. Final question, question number 30. So question number 30 says Brandon invested 7,900 in an account, paying an interest rate of 6 and 1/8 percentage compounded daily. Jacob invested 7,900 in an account, paying an interest of 6 and 5/8% compounded monthly. After 15 years, how much more money would Jacob have in his account than Brandon to the nearest dollar? Okay. So this, guys, is probably one of the hardest representations you guys can do. So we're gonna actually do this on a sheet of paper. Okay. So anytime you're doing any interest that's compounding, all right, or being compounded, you need to use this formula for compounded interest. The formula is A is equal to P, all right, parentheses 1 plus R over N to the exponent NT. So that's the formula for compounded interest. And as you can figure, these letters all mean something. This A represents your total. This P represents your principal or your initial, all right? So it's whatever your starting amount is, all right? The R would represent, yup, your rate. N would represent the number of things within your set. All right. So within the set. All right. And I'll show you what that means. This N and this N are the same number. So again, this would be the same thing. Okay. And T, you can assume, is time. All right. So what we're going to do, guys, is that we're going to write A is equal to some principal, parentheses 1. So again, that principal is being multiplied by that parentheses. So 1 plus some rate over some n amount of things being to the exponent of some n being multiplied by some t. Okay? So let's try to read the question to get this information. So it says Brandon, all right, is being compared to Jacob. So let's look at Brandon first. So Brandon said he invested 79,000 in an account, paying an interest of 6 and 1/8 percentage. So for Brandon, his principal or starting amount would have been 7,900. All right. So again, guys, this is for Brandon, all right? Because again, we're going to be doing Brandon first. So for Brandon's initial or principal, I would have 7,900, all right? So now let's identify the R or the rate, okay? So Brandon said that his amount had an interest rate of 6 and 1/8%. Well, 6 1/8 as a percent, all right? I need to write it a little differently. So 6 and 1/8 mean that you're doing 6 plus 1/8. So I'm going to do 6 plus 1 over 8. That's what 6 and 1/8 means. 6 plus 1/8. Okay? And I would get 6.125. Okay? So that means that that rate for Brandon, so rate for Brandon, right? So again, the rate for Brandon, that's how I represent it right here. Rate for Brandon, rate for B would be 6 point, so again, it was 6.125. So that was the rate or the percentage, 6.125. But again, this is a percent and we don't want a percent. So I'm going to move the decimal point that's right here 2 times to the left like Beyonce. Okay. So I have a space right here, so I'm going to use 0 as a placeholder. So this would be the same as 0.06125 as a decimal. And yes, I can put a 0 in front as a placeholder if I would like. So my rate is 0.06125. All right. So now let's find our N. Okay. So it says you are compounded daily, and we're looking at the amount of money we're gonna have, okay, in the account after a certain amount of years, after 15 years. Okay, so we need to find how many days or how many dailies I can get in a year. So there's about 365 days in a year. So your N for Brandon, so your N for Brandon would be 365. All right, because that's the amount of days would have been in the year, and he's compounding his daily. So 365 would go right here, and 365 would also go right here. Okay, and then what do you think represents time, guys? The after 15 years for both of them. So for both Brandon and Jacob, they're doing after 15 years. So 15 for both of them is the time. All right. And then all I would do now, guys, is plug this in my calculator. Before I plug this in my calculator, guys, all right, I'm going to go ahead and set up for Jacob, okay? So we're going to do this exact same thing, but we're going to do it for Jacob, all right? So we're going to have sum initial being multiplied by parentheses 1 plus sum rate over sum n, and then sum n times sum time, okay? So let's plug this in a calculator to get what we get here so I don't get confused. So I have my calculator here. I would type 7,900 being multiplied by parentheses 1 plus, then I click the fraction button, 0.06125 over 365, because that's the amount of days in a year. And then to the exponent, parentheses 365, parentheses, and then another parentheses 15. Okay, and I got 19,797, all right, 0.10433. Write out everything, guys. So write everything. Don't write some, write every single thing that you see right here. So write all of this, okay? So now we're going to do the same thing for Jacob. So again, now we're going to do the same thing for Jacob, all right? So when we read Jacob, said Jacob invested the same 7,900. So for Jacob, his principal is the same amount, all right? However, for Jacob, his interest was different. He had 6 and 5/8. All right. So for Jacob, I need to do 6 plus 5/8. And I got for Jacob's rate to be 6.625%. All right. So for Jacob rate, so for rate of Jacob, all right, he got 6.625. Okay, but that's a percent. I need to get a decimal, so I'm gonna move the point 2 times to the left like Beyonce. I see a space here, so I can use 0 as a placeholder to give me 0.06625. All right, as a decimal. All right, and that's what my rate would be, 0.06625. All right. So now we're going to try to find out the n, all right? So the n for Jacob would be the number that it's changing by. It says that his was changing monthly. So I need to figure out how many months is in an entire year. So there's 12 months in a year. So his is changing in every 12 months, all right? So for every 12, okay? So his n would be 12. His n would also be 12. And for both of them, the time is 15. Okay, so let's plug this in our calculator to see what we get. So if I plug this in my calculator, 79 plus 0.06625, and then the number, the n would be 12 for both of these n's. Okay, and I got, so let's write what we got. 21,282.38319. All right. So that's what we got for Jacob. But it says that we need to figure out how much more money would Jacob have in his account than Brandon. So I need to do Jacob, then Brandon. So I need to do Jacob, all right, minus Brandon. Okay. So again, that's what I would need to do now. So Jacob has 21,282.38319, and I'm going to subtract it by Brandon, which has 19,797.10433. All right. So I'm going to plug this in my calculator now, guys. So in my calculator, I would type 21,282, right? 0.38319 minus 19,797.10433. All right. And I got 1,485.27886. Okay. So yep, write out everything, guys. Write out everything. Okay. So the question says you were rounding to the nearest dollar. All right. So nearest dollar would be nearest whole number. So I look at the first number after the decimal point. Because it is not 5 or larger, my answer would be 1,485 to the nearest dollar. Because nearest dollar is nearest whole number. So 1,485. All right. So again, guys, this is a very, very difficult question. All right. So again, if you struggle on this, I totally understand. Because this is a very, very difficult question. All right. So let's try to do one more, guys. Let's try to do one more. Okay. So when I try another question, I'm going to need a whole new sheet of paper. All right. So again, I'm doing compounded interest. So the formula for compounded interest is A equal P parentheses 1 plus R over N to the exponent N T. Okay. So again, A is your total. P is your principal or your initial. So principal or your initial. All right. R we know is our rate. Okay. N is the number of things, which I showed you guys before. So number of things within the set. Okay, so within the set. And I would recommend you write this all in your notebook for the entire thing that I've done. Okay, this is that same N, and T you know is time. Okay, so we're gonna have A is equal to some principal parentheses 1 plus some rate over some N of things, and then N being multiplied by T. Okay, and T is time. Okay, so we're gonna do this formula for Avani or Avani. Okay, so this is gonna be for Avani. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna do it for Mackenzie. Okay, so we're gonna do the same formula again. So same setup. All right, but this will be for Mackenzie. All right, I hope I spelled that correctly. I did not. All right, so MAC. All right, so let's go and let's do it, guys. So let's do for Avani first. All right, so it says that Avani invested 7,300 in the account. So what would that 7,300 be? The principal. So that's the amount that they invested in the account before it started to change. So 730. That's what it was? Yep, 730. All right. So now we're gonna find the rate, guys. So let's find the rate. So it says that we're doing 6.25 percent. Okay. So 6.25 would be 6 plus 1/4. So for Avani, 6.25% is 6.25. All right. So for Avani's rate, so rate for Avani would be 6.25, but this is a percentage. And do we need a percent? No, we need a decimal. So I'm going to move it 2 times to the left. So the point would now be here, and I'm going to put 0 as a placeholder to fill that space. So this will be 0.0625. And that's what my rate is, 0.0625. Okay. So then now I need to look for my N for Avani. So Avani says that hers was compounded monthly, and we're doing per year, we're doing within a year. So there's 12 months within a year. So Avani's N would be 12. All right. So her N would be 12, or her N again would be 12. Okay. And then T would be amount of years that's being passed compounded would be after 17 years. Okay. And then now I'm gonna drop that in my calculator. All right. So let's put that in my calculator, guys. So I'd have 730 being multiplied by parentheses 1 plus a fraction, which is 0.0625 over 12 to the exponent. Okay, so you click the exponent button, all right, which is parentheses 12 and then another parentheses 17. All right, so both of them in different parentheses. Zoom it in just so you can see accurately. All right, and just so I can see accurately also. All right, so I got 2106.508628. All right, write out everything, guys. Write every single thing that you see. All right. So now we're gonna do for Mackenzie. So we're gonna do the exact same thing, but for Mackenzie. All right. So when we look at Mackenzie, Mackenzie says that she had 730 that she was investing in the account. So she likewise has 730 as a principal or initial. All right. However, her rate was different because she had 6 and 3/4. So we need to do 6 plus 3/4, which would be 6.275. All right. So as I said before, guys, that would be 6.275. However, that's a percentage. All right. And we need a decimal. All right. So we got 6.75. All right. But this is a percent, so we need to get a decimal by moving it 2 times to the left like Beyonce. We have an empty space, so I use 0 to fill that empty space. So this will be 0.0675. And yes, I can put a 0 in front of here if I want. So 0.0675. All right. So now I need to look at the N for Mackenzie. All right. So the N for Mackenzie says that hers is being compounded daily. So there's about 365 days within a year. So for hers, her N was 365. Because again, we're looking at this for the year, all right, or for the years, and there's 365 days within a year, all right. So that's her N. That would go in both of these places, all right. And for both of them, the number of years that's passing is 17 years. All right. So 17 years. Okay. So let's go and let's put this in our calculator now, guys. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to retype it. 730 being multiplied by parentheses 1 plus a fraction, which is 0.0675 over 365 to the exponent. All right, which is 365 in a parentheses being multiplied by 17 in another parentheses. All right. So again, I'm going to zoom in to make sure everything is accurate, exactly what I see on my paper. All right. Looks really good. Looks exactly. And I got 2299.480353. All right. So it says, how much more money would Mackenzie have in her account than Avani? Because it says Mackenzie than Avani, I would need to do Mackenzie minus Avani or Avani, right? Either way, all right? So again, we would do Mackenzie, which is 2,299.480353 minus 2,106.508628. All right. So let's drop that in our calculators, guys. So when I drop that in my calculator, all right, 2,299.480353 minus 2,106.508628. 8628. Let me make sure that everything looks accurate. So 2299.480353, then 2106.508628. Yep. And I got 192.9711725, but it says round to the nearest what? Dollar. So nearest dollar would be nearest whole number. All right. So again, nearest dollar for me would be nearest whole number. Nearest whole number means I look at the first number after the decimal point. Because it is 5 or larger, this will round up to 193. All right. So the answer for this one would be 193. So as I said before, guys, this is a pretty difficult question, all right? And it involves a lot of different pieces, okay? So if you follow me diligently, you'll be able to get this, all right? And that's everything for your spring break activity.